Hello again. This is a video for social education for LCA. I hope it'll be helpful. I'll just take you through some of the bits we did and then the bits that we're supposed to be currently doing on contemporary issues. So the first big module of social education was called My Community, right? And you have to pick your 4 best key assignments from the key assignments you did to present to myself and your year head and coordinator. Yeah, so just take you through first of all the older ones, because I know a few of you were trying to catch up on parts, endings, and that you didn't get done. So we need to make sure first of all we have 4 definite ones of these done, because I know some people were absent, etc. So hopefully this will help. So first of all, I took part key assignment 1. So make sure you label things KA1 for key assignment 1, KA2 for key assignment 2, etc., etc. when you're handing it in. And make sure you call these key assignments My Community, okay? Because that's the title of them. Don't confuse them with the next module, which is called Contemporary Issues. Okay, so I took part in a class discussion about our local area in the past, okay? That's quite straightforward. We already did that. We talked about Rush, and we talked about the different histories and what goes on in Rush, etc., and then we wrote up in our booklets. You could even do this from your head, remembering back and typing up a document on it, if you haven't done already, but most of you have typed it up. So just have a look, check over your work, make sure that you have your 4 organized, ready to go, not in the wrong folders, etc. So number 2, I contributed to 3 different topics on this issue during the discussion. So 3 different topics just mean 3 different things on a particular issue, and the issue we're talking about all the time here is My Community. So 3 different topics about issues in the community. That's an easy enough one to do as well. An even easier one here is I interviewed a senior citizen from my local community, so that could be your grandparents, about what was life like in the past in Rush. Yeah, so I would suggest you've plenty of time to talk to your grandparents, Zoom them or whatever to call them, get them a ring, write down notes from it, and then type them up. That's a definite full 100% in it. So there's no reason why anyone in the class couldn't have that one done. Okay, so next one. I designed and presented a simple leaflet about 5 different organizations providing a service. What that means is we picked 5 different places in Rush, like say Moores, the community centre, library, whatever, and we needed 5 of them. Some of you did it just on the library, but what you need is to do a short paragraph, maybe 5 lines in each one, on 5 different organizations in Rush. So that's easy to do. So we need to finish that off. Okay, so have a look, see how many you did, and make sure you've got 5. Okay, I plotted a long distance journey by road on a map from my home to another point 100 kilometers away. That's easy to do. Just go into Google Maps, get a photograph of what you did, and just make sure you can actually plot from your home to 100 kilometers away. And I showed you in class how to do this. Number 6, I also showed an alternative route to this point using a different mode of transport. Well, on Google Maps as well, you can change your transport, as I've showed you, from walking to cycling to trains, and you can get a list of trains and train times. So if you can prove that you can do that, get photographs and upload it onto your G drives, you're away in a hack there as well. I went to my local library and got the names of at least 5 useful books. That was the one where we went upstairs and I told you to write down the authors and the names of books upstairs in the section that was about your community, Rush. Okay. Now, number 8, I took part in a class survey to plot on a map the litter bins provided by the local authorities, that's Fingal County Council. So remember we did this as we were walking up to the library visits. So you wrote down where the bins were on the way there and the way back. That's fine, that's all you need to do, but draw it in a map form and make sure the bins are in the right place. And add to it by putting photographs of those bins or photographs of the streets that you were on. And again, it was 1 or 2 people, Matthew Wade, etc., had some photographs done, so they were willing to share them. So make sure you use that, and then bingo, you have another one done. So shouldn't be any problem at all there getting 4 of those completely finished, and that you're happy and proud of the 4 that you've had. So look over the 4, make sure you have them organized, neat and tidy, and that they're done to a satisfactory level. Yeah. Okay, now moving on to contemporary issues, right? So I'm going to flick screens here now. Okay, so when we go into the key assignments checklist on contemporary issues, and again, there's a contemporary issues 1, and there's going to be contemporaries issue 2, which is another module we'll be doing after this one. Yeah. But this one, the key assignments you have to do for this one is one of the key A stands for key assignments, must be a group activity, and one must be an out of school activity, right? Now remember, we did the library, so you can possibly include that one. We'll have a look here now. So key assignment 1, I took part in a role play, either as a participant or I was just looking at other people doing it, and I recorded as the key thing. I made an effort. I took down the observations about this situation where a denial of a human right was, in other words, when a person that wasn't allowed, say, freedom of speech, or someone who wasn't allowed, doesn't have access to a home, which is a basic human right. So it's hard to do role play. We might leave that one for class, where we do role plays in class, where we can pretend we're maybe in a situation where we're homeless, and what we can do, what the ins and outs of that are. Key assignment 2 then, I informed the class about a human rights issue. Now that's an easy one. You can easily get going on yourself. You basically type up a Google Slides presentation about a human rights issue. The human rights issue can be any issue that humans have around the world. It's pure simple. I've just put down homelessness there, but it could be on anything, right? There's no real wrong answers there. You just pick something that you have passion about, that you feel people are not getting the rights met for. And I found some information in a newspaper or online, yeah, elsewhere. So that could be online, right? So if you can get an article matching up about homelessness from a newspaper or from a leaflet, any sort of documentation, plus something online. So the more resources, the more places you go to find stuff, the better your mark's going to be on that. Again, you've got distinction, merit, etc., different grades all the way down. The people who make the most effort basically get the distinctions. It's very easy. I won't be denying anyone getting a distinction if you just show that you're putting in the good amount of effort. In other words, good content, not skipping corners and what have you. Okay, so next one then, key assignment 3. I created a poster. Here we go. This is easy. Create a big poster. A1 just means a big poster. So you can sellotape 2 A4 pages together, right? Or whatever way you want, as long as it's a big poster. And you're promoting a human right. So human right might be people have right not to be subjected to racism. So females have a right to be treated as equals around the world, where we know in some parts of the world they're not treated as equals, and in some parts of the world they don't even have a right to education. So you might feel passionate about that. You might feel passionate about something else, where you've had a look at different places and issues that are happening around the world. And again, the RT News app is a great way of finding out what's going on in the world. If you download that onto your phones and you just look at RT News, at least you're not getting fake news then, and you're hearing about different rights. It's a perfect time now, because the COVID-19, you'll be able to see loads of different problems and people's rights arguably being denied in different places. So pick one and do a poster about it. Simple. Loads of colour, loads of effort, 100% if you have that done. Yeah, so I get going on that. You can easily get going on that from home. Key assignment, next key assignment then is, I explained to my class 3 things I considered right and 3 things I considered wrong with regard to a particular issue. Forget about the word contemporary, it's confused, it's just issue. So one thing that you might explain to the class in a presentation, basically do Google Slides again, and you're going to explain to the class 3 things you thought right and 3 things you thought wrong with regard to, say, unaffordable housing, rents, unemployment, maybe people not getting enough money for social welfare or job seekers benefit, single mothers maybe not being looked after enough, and healthcare is maybe not getting enough childcare for free as this crisis goes on. There's loads of things. You obviously pick your own one that you have an interest in yourself. Right, the next key assignment here is, I contacted an organization outside of school, so it can be a charity organization. I think we've got to start on this in class, whereby you find out the email of Troker and Google, just Google it, find out. Goal is one of my favorite organizations. I give money to them regularly. They're a great organization, goal.org, right? And goal.com, go into both of them, right? and have a look and see, find their contact us page, and then give them an email and ask them about information on the human rights abuses or problems that you feel is a big issue for the world. Yeah. And then what you do is you do a report. Remember, we did a report before for computers. It was key assignment 4 on Microsoft Word. And I'd given you the layout for a report, to, from, terms of reference, findings, conclusions, recommendations. Same idea. So you copy the same headings from that, and then just make a report on what information you found from that organization. Again, get information. You'll click on About on the Goal website, and they'll give you all the information on the different human rights issues that are happening around the world. So that'll be great education for you to see what's going on around the world, and also it'll help you decide which one you think is a really important one that you should be promoting as a human being to try and help the world. Yeah? Okay, so again, any questions, you'll email me on my usual email address. And you'll put these on Google Drive under the correct folder. Make sure it goes under a folder, name it Contemporary Issues 1, and then make sure you name the key assignments that you do. You can pick any 4 you want, do them all first, but then your 4 key ones, or your best ones, are the ones you're going to be sharing with coordinators, your heads, and I. Yeah, same with everything, with all the other presentations we're talking about. So, key assignment 4, yeah, we did that one. Key assignment 5, with other members of my class, I organized a survey on the attitudes in our local area about a particular issue. So again, this is one we can't do. It would be difficult to do anyway during this COVID-19. So we might leave that till maybe next year, or when we're back in class. But I'll be doing a survey where we stand outside SPAR and ask local people in Rush questions about maybe issues that maybe they're facing themselves, problems, in other words, issues, human issues that are facing in their community that they think is a major problem. Maybe the cost of living, maybe it's very expensive to live generally at the moment. Maybe it's a struggle for a lot of families that they can't afford to pay for the basics. Yeah. Okay, so there's your key assignments. I just see here there's some little edit mistake I need to address, but that's key assignment 1, key assignment 2, and then there's key assignment 3. So that'll mean this one should have been key assignment 4. This one should be key assignment 5, and then that would make this one key assignment 6. Okay, got it? So make sure you call them those correct numbers, please. And again, make sure you're organized. You get marks for organization, being well organized, showing off your computer skills, and also making an effort. Fancier and more creative, and the better your presentation is going to determine whether you end up with a distinction or merit or pass, etc. Yep, got it? Okay, so thanks for your attention. Any questions, please email me, and I'll expand on whatever you need help with. Stay safe. Bye-bye. Other people, making them feel bad. And obviously that's not nice, it's not kind. And that doesn't help society, it doesn't help any of us. So I protect my private information. Yeah, never share your private details, your full name, address, and banking details, mobile number. You know, don't be giving that information to anyone. Make sure you talk to your parents before you're giving private information to anyone. That's a major no-no. Do not give private information to anyone who asks it online. Okay, and yeah, tell a responsible adult if someone's being harmful to them. If you don't like something, you think that's not right online, make sure you report it. Say it to parents, or else that person gets away with it. Criminal, you can get away with things online, and there's plenty of criminals online that you need to be aware of. When I'm online, I ensure that I'm responsible and safe. Well, the best way is, again, check in with your parents, and they can let you know. Okay, right. Moving on then, our last slide that I put together. Let's see, questions. Okay, so you have a think about now, and you could type these up. Make sure you type in the questions themselves as well, so I can see what answer you're trying to answer. Make sure you use proper titles, please. The role of the media is the title for this, and then you put question 1, and then you write down, just for short, ADV, and DIS. If you want to shorten it, there's no problem. But just as long as I know what the question was about. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of the general public creating news stories, taking photos, videos, and writing things on social media? Okay, so have a think about that. If someone's reporting a story, a crime, for example, and there's someone there with a video camera, and they've snipped it or edited it, and they've maybe missed out on the first part of the story or the second part of the story, have a think about how that might impact. And also think about actually the advantages of it sometimes, that you can actually maybe record stuff that the Guardian might want to see, and then there's more eyes on those people who might be doing wrong. Okay, so why is it good? Now it should be an it there. Apologies for the typo, just put an it in there. Why is it good to switch off news and not have it on 24/7? And the same goes with our phones and our screen time, basically. And why should we not spend all our time on negative or depressing news stories? And especially coming up to bedtime, you shouldn't. It's not a good idea to use your phone coming up to your bedtime. The screen time keeps you awake. You won't get a good night's sleep, and you'll be grumpy and tired the next day if you don't get proper sleep every night. So yeah, it's a good idea to put the phone down, and maybe don't go into heavy news or depressing news after 6 o'clock just before you're going to go to bed. It's not good for your well-being. So yeah, I'd stay clear of that one. Right, next one. But have a think about that, and any ideas you have, add some yourself here as well, and just helping you along here as well. So why is it good to be up to date with stories in RT News? So why do you think it's good to be reading RT News? Think about the educational value. I think some of the best education you can get is reading the weekend newspapers. If the writing's good and it's a good newspaper, good quality one like the Irish Times. Yeah. But RT News, is the Irish news backed by the Irish government, and you get stories on lifestyle, culture, politics, current affairs. So have a think about why that would be important why would it be important to know about things that are going on in the world. Okay, what are your own reflections about the role of media in Irish society? What do you think the media is positive or negative? And if it's positive, why is it positive? What does it do? If it's negative, how can it be negative? And what do we have to be careful of? Okay, so have a think about all of those. Type them up and then share them to my usual email. And then, yeah, as usual, like we do in class. And again, you don't have to, if you want to reduce the amount of work you have to do, you can always work in your same group of 4, so we were in class, have the same manager, and you can communicate with each other using the Google Slides, and then ask your manager to post it to me. And then just put the name of each person on what slide that you did in terms of your summaries. Put them down in the bottom right corner so I can give marks for the effort individually and as a group. And remember, we mark on efforts, that's content, your creativity when you do up your summaries, basically. So you'll be doing a summary up on this using Google Slides, using your own pictures, your own words, as this student did. Again, there's no rush with any of these. The hope, I suppose, is to finish law and the role of media by the end of this school year. So do we have to get it all done? And it's dependent on the student. Some students will be able to get it done more quickly than others. Just do your best. Spend about an hour a week on work, maybe 10 minutes every second night on news for your homework. And that's more than enough. You don't need to go over the hour every week on CSPE. No need. So what I ask you to do, you don't need to worry. It doesn't have to be done that minute or that hour or that week. Just keep tipping away every week an hour, and we'll eventually get all the work done. We'll be better for it. Okay, so again, any questions, concerns, suggestions, you're always welcome to email me on my email address. And yeah, thanks for your attention. Keep safe. Bye-bye. Okay, how are we doing? Welcome to my new video on exam papers. So I thought this would be useful for you. I'm going to do it on 2019. 2015 as well is also a very important one. And any of the Leaving Cert papers for honours, you have units 2, 3 and 4. For the ordinary level, you can send me on your work, and I'll continue to correct it from the photographs, give you tips and pointers, and it's a lot more straightforward. You can find the answers even more easily on this website, which I'm just about to show you. So the website that's very important for you to do well in Leaving Cert Business is this website, and it's called examinations.ie. So you Google that or type it straight in, come to a screen such as this. I showed you this in class before, so if you want to fast forward this section, do. So you click, make sure I've read the terms and conditions. You click here whether you want the exam paper for business 2019 or the marking scheme, which is the answers basically for 2019 with all the marks, how many's going for each different point. Okay, so then you type in the years. 2019 is what I typed in. Type in the subject you want, Leaving Cert Business Studies. The last one allows you to choose a subject. So choose business, and then come down here and double click on higher level English version, and then you'll have that open. If you right click it, you can open it into a new tab, right? Because it's nice to have the answers and the questions side by side, especially when you're starting off until you get good at them. When you get good at them, obviously then don't look at the answers much, try and do it yourself. And remember, one of the biggest obstacles is time and organization. So time, a lot of students run out of time because they don't have a timer in front of them and they're not timing their questions exactly, and trying to maybe do too much on one question or one part of a question, and then they run out of time at the end. The other problem is organization, in terms of making sure that you have the correct format for your answers, and that is, again, we've mentioned this a lot of times in class: state, explain, maybe 3 bullet pointed sentences to explain an answer. One of those explanations might be an example. And in most cases, when the marks are, depending on the marks they're going for, you're going to need to state 3 explanations and an example. But depending on time, you might just put one of those examples in as your final explanation. So it's good to have examples. It shows a better understanding of your answer and how you're answering questions. So, okay, moving on. So I've already opened up these 2 files. The exam paper is there. And then we have on the next tab, we have the answer guide. Okay, so I'll maybe do a few questions, stop the video, and then do another one, rather than it being too long. So what we'll do is we'll start in here, we'll have a look. Obviously, a lot of students sometimes forget to look even at the start of the exam and see exactly how much time and everything. So you've got 9:30 to 12:30. That's 10:30, 11:30, 12:30. So obviously that's 3 hours. And here is where your examiner is going to be putting in the marks for your exam, as you saw in your mock exam. And it usually starts with your short questions, which are 80 marks. Again, I've given you a lot of documentation on this on my website, and we've gone through it in class, how to approach exams and also marks going for different sections, and how to organize your answers and all. Okay, so this section is compulsory. That means you have to do it. It's 80 marks. You answer 8 questions. Each carries 10 marks each. And I was recommending that you do every question, especially if you have time, because you might think you have a question right, but it might be wrong, and then they'll pick your best 8 out of the 10. So if I was doing it, I'd often have time, and I'd do, when I was a student, I did Leaving Cert Business, and I would have done all 10, yeah? So I'd recommend students to do that. So number 1 then gives you a list of column different items, and you have to match them with the column on the right. So we'll do maybe one of these, and I'll move on maybe to section 2. So I think all the short answers are going to be very easy to find for yourself. on this, so we'd be wasting time, I think, if we did any further. But we'll flick through quickly some parts, or you're going to be here all day listening and getting bored, and then we'll go through a few of the different sections, give some pointers, and pick out a question each one. So this one here we've got is a question that asks you to match up job description, norming, manpower planning, person specification, and chain of command with the list of items here. And as you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items here, whereas there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items here. So one of them won't be used. Okay, so if we look across, we need to be able to find and access all of the answers for each section. So come down, down, down is the marking scheme, in other words, the answer scheme with the marks. Again, it's important to read everything, yeah. If we move down here, we have the marking scheme for section 1. So you remember section 1 was the short, compulsory, and you've got 80 marks going for that. Well, it breaks down the points for each question. So your short question 1 is broken down. You get 3 marks, then 2, 2, 2, and 1 for your final one. So you get a few extra marks for getting the first one right. And that maybe helps some students that maybe don't get the full exam finished, that sometimes they give a higher weighting on your first answer rather than your last one. Okay, and then question 2, the marks are broken down, 2 and 2 points, etc. And each time you go through each one of them, they're broken down a little bit differently, and you get 10 marks for each short question. Okay, so we move back now to the short questions, run through the next section, see if we can be of help there. So name 3 categories of industry, in the concept of business, what do all the abbreviations stand for? Again, some of those come up regularly. You should have a list of your abbreviations and write them out for practice. Know them, yeah, there's some common ones there. Explain national minimum wage, describe one possible impact. Outline 2 problems, Ireland's trading goods. That's a regular one there, where they ask you to do a little sum, a ratio, sometimes it can be, and other times it's maybe the calculate the balance of trade. Imports, niche marks. So as you can see, they try and give a range of questions from all the units in the book, as balanced as they can. That can sometimes pop up in short questions as well. If not, then if they don't do it in the short questions, they'll usually give you a question on the break-even chart then in the main section. Now, good tip for that is at the start of the exam papers that I bought for you, you'll see at the front, it gives you which questions came up the most often in the exam. So even though it's dangerous to predict what exactly is coming up, it'll give you a good flavour of what comes up regularly in the exams. Right, so section 2 then we know is sometimes called a case study. Some people call it a case study, some people call it an ABQ, not to get confused with it. And these are not the units that your exam are going to be based on, because every year it's based on different units, this section. So for your year, it's based on units 2, 3, and 4. And there's 80 marks going for it. And again, the recommendation here is to read it, underline key bits. But step 1, as we said in class, is to read the questions first in the case study. So then you know what bits you're going to be thinking of highlighting. Okay? So you're going to be using your state, explain, and you can put an example if you want as part of your explanation, but the more important thing here is to have a link or quote coming directly from the text to back up what you're saying in your answer. Okay, so explain the term entrepreneur. And then you've got another question here, part A, outline the benefits for Emma Daly of becoming an entrepreneur. So let's now look at how they're going to break down the marking scheme for part I and part 2 of part A on the marking scheme. So if we go down here, first of all, they give you the marking scheme, okay, and then if you go a bit further down on the screen, you'll get the answers, right? Or a good bit further down, you get the answers. So explain the term entrepreneur. Using your cop on, you'd be thinking to yourself, they're not going to give me a lot of marks for just one definition. So there's 6 marks going for that. So you have to use a bit of maths in your head then. So there's 6 marks going for that. Then there's 14 marks then going for the rest. Okay, and then you have to think to yourself, well, how might that be broken down? So if they're asking for outline the benefits for Emma Daly of becoming an entrepreneur, you need to have a list in your head of the benefits of becoming an entrepreneur. So that means you need a list of states. If you don't have the states, you won't be able to explain, and then you won't have examples. So you need to learn off your states first for important sections throughout the course. Now, so your state then, so it's saying 2 at 7. So you're looking at 2 major benefits here, and you're going to get 2 for stating what the benefit is of becoming an entrepreneur. You're going to get 3 points for explaining it. So you're going to get a point per sentence or per bullet point. That's why we're always saying state, explain, 3 bullet points, and then the link then. So you're going to get 2 marks for putting a quote or direct link from the case study into your answer. Okay, and yeah, so if you add that up, then you've got 2 by 7 is 14. 14 then is 6 will give you 20. So there's your 20 marks for your case study. Now, evaluate. You really need to have, on my website, you've got a list of key terms and explains exactly all those command words. If you don't understand what evaluate means, you're going to struggle to answer the question appropriately. So make sure you've looked at a file called command words on my website under Leave and Start Business Resources. Okay, so evaluate the management activities involved in the operation of Oakfield, a lodge wedding venue. So there you got to start thinking to yourself, I need to know the management activities, or I'm not going to be able to answer this question. Okay? And remember, we were talking about the management activities. There's a little mnemonic we learn: planning, organizing, controlling. Sometimes they add in leading into that. It can be argued whether that could be put in or not. But yeah, so first of all, you need those 3 that I mentioned. And you're going to have to state them. You're going to have to explain what the activity is about. So in other words, what's organising about. Name it as organising. That's your first marks going for that. Then you're going to explain it, and then you're going to put your link. So the activity is just another word for state. So you're getting 3 marks for stating organisation. You're going to explain it then, and you've 2 marks going for that. And then you're going to link it back, and that's going to be 3 marks. So often explanation would have more marks than 3 usually for it. This one is just 2. So link then it's a lot of marks going for that, in that it's your 3 marks there. So you also then have additional marks that a lot of students forget about and don't write down at the end of their question. So as soon as you get a question called evaluate, you should have a section at the very end underlined, call it evaluation. And then you want to give your opinions there on, so if they're asking you to evaluate the management activities involved in the operation of Oakfield Lodge wedding venue, you would say, well, I think that their management activities were worked well because I thought organization was important, because I thought planning was important for this local wedding venue, because I think that planning, controlling is important from the financial point of view. Don't forget having resources there, stock for the wedding. But anyway, so you need to be thinking along those lines. And then if you look at the marks, again, you need to do a little bit of maths. 3/8 are 24. So you're getting 24 marks for state, explain, and put your link in. But then you're getting the last 6 marks for your heading called evaluation, where you give your overall opinions on why this was good or bad. Yeah. Okay, and again, any questions, make sure you give me an email. I've given it out to you many times. Okay, the last part is part C then, and it asks students, do you think Oakfield Lodge as a service provider has basically gone along with the terms of the Sale of Goods and Supply of Service Act 1980? Now, I told you this is a really important act to learn and to make sure you have enough states on it and to be able to explain those states, and then you can have a few examples as well. So explain your answer using the knowledge of the law and refer to the text of the ABQ. So here then, because it says, do you think they're giving, so that's the type of question, if you aware what type of question I'm asking. So 3 9s are 27, and that's broken down with state, the point of law. So for example, you might have fit for purpose, just that on its own, that'd be your state. Of mercantile quality, that would be another one maybe. And then match description, that could be another one. And you'd leave it at that, but then you'd explain each of those states, and then you'd show links on whether they're being applied or not in this particular case study, right? So that's that done. So moving on. The next section then is going to be called section 3. And in section 3, very important to note is that you answer 4 of your best questions from section 3. Obviously, there's more than 4 there. You just pick the best 4. Now, there's a tricky extra little bit here in that you answer 1 question from part 1, 2 questions from part 2, because you'll see section 3 has different parts to it. So you answer 1 question from part 1, 2 questions from part 2, and 1 other question. So you can get your last question from either part 1 or part 2, and they'll all carry the same amount of marks. So the way this is broken down, part 1 is usually a question based on unit 1 in the book, and that's about people in business. And as you can see, they've asked you here, explain each of the following terms in relation to the law of contract. Again, very important, law of contract. And provide an example in each case. So explain the following terms, right? 4 at 5 marks each. And that's going to give you your 20. 4 5s are 20. And it's 3 plus 2. Okay, and again, always keep in mind, state, explain, and example. So in this case, if they've given you some of the terms, well, then you're going to concentrate more on the explanations and the examples. But if they haven't, then you want to be able to state capacity, state consideration, state legality of form, state consent to contract, then give your explanations and give an example within the time. So it's only 20 marks going for it. So you wouldn't be spending all day writing out all what's in the book on capacity to contract. You have to be selective with your information when you're giving answers. Okay, so you have to pick out the most important bits, in other words. Part B then of the same question, question 1, asks for 3 reasons other than pay for an industrial dispute. And again, there's 20, you need to be always look for how many marks are going for it. So obviously there's a lot more need to be written for this one because it's 25 marks. This one's only 15, this one's 20. And outline 3 reasons other than pay for an industrial dispute. So you have to come up with those 3 reasons. And if it says 3, you're obviously going to need 3. And then 3 by 5, so you're going to state for 2 and then explain for 3. And one of those sentences could be an example instead of an explanation. You still get the 3 points. So that'll be 3 5s or 15. 15 minus 25, you're going to be looking at 10 marks. Okay, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's adding up to 10 there. And says discuss the procedures which must be followed before an official industrial action can take place. Okay, so you need to discuss then procedures here. We've only got 10 marks left, so you want to be listing out the procedures, the official industrial action that you can take, and again, when you have an opportunity to give an example and explain, and then yeah, obviously only 10 marks, so you wouldn't go overboard. Okay, moving down. Evaluate the small claims procedure for resolving conflicts. Again, the pros and cons. Evaluate is a very important question. And then at the end, also, in addition to pros and cons, put a title at the bottom, underline and call it evaluation, and give your overall opinion on what you think. Do you think it's a good procedure? Do you think it's a good court? Why? Yeah. Okay, so it's 15 marks going for that. So 3 4s are 12. So you're getting your marks for state and explaining, maybe an example again instead of one of the explanations, and then 3 marks left over at the end for an evaluation. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how these questions operate. I'll just quickly go through the overall questions, and then we'll be able to break them down a little bit for you. So question 2 then is domestic environment. And again, a lot of the questions are often based on units in the book. So it's good to get used to what the units are called in your book. So go to your book and find out the units, and then match them off into the unit questions on the exam papers. And then maybe have a think about what unit are you particularly comfortable with, which one are you going to be, which 4 questions are you going to focus your attentions on in the exam. Again, if you have time, you might do an extra question because they'll pick the best one. Yeah. And that's what I'd do. Okay, so this one is talking about various different things. Marks are broken down similarly. I'm not going to go through the same thing again, but just to know that all these questions are going to be worth 60 marks. So they're all going to be broken down with similar type of marks, 20s or 25s, 15s, in and around that for each question. Okay, we scroll down more. We see question 3 is on the international environment. Now we'd be thinking there about the EU. We'd be talking about Unit 7 that I did a video on recently. So when you're thinking about the international environment, you're thinking, well, that's a question from Unit 7. So you need to get into your head which question is related to which unit in the book. Section 3, Part 2, scenario in Part 2. Again, similar type questions. Section 3 is all the same. They're all worth 60 marks. And then again, look, it's broken down 20, 20, 20. And same idea, you want to be given your state, explain, and examples. All the way through all these questions for Section 3. And just be aware of where the marks are being broken down. So you break those down a bit further to analyze them, and you'll get to that end. So outline the effects of decrease. This is managing business and business in action from units in the book. And again, marks are broken down there for you. Question 6. Again, there's no point repeating myself. And question 7. And okay, so then it just goes through some of the actual answers. So what we're on now is the actual answers for the full exam. So all those short questions are answered first. Okay, and then you scroll down, you wait till you get to section 2, right? There's section 2, so that's the ABQ or case study, and that'll be big long answers. That's to be nice and long. You might put in red pen the links, or in bold as they've done there. You might underline them if you have time. And again, that's still, so the ABQ, you nearly want about 3 or 4 A4 pages for your ABQ answers as a general rule about that. But again, it's all dependent on time. Okay, so let's see where we are. Section 3 then, again, full answers there. You've no problem opening this up and finding the answers. And the marking scheme, remember I showed you, was up at the top, broken down quite easily. If there's something confusing though, after you've read through these answers, something you don't understand or something that you're not familiar with the marking scheme, you need to make me aware and say, sir, this is confusing. What's the story with this? That's no problem, and I'll come back and help you with it. And I think by the sounds of things, we'd be allowed into class, I think, for 2 weeks before the exam. That's as it currently stands. I don't know if that's confirmed because I don't know what way the COVID-19 is going to go. But when we know, you guys will know, and then we'll work accordingly. Okay, so there's all your answers, all the way to the bottom. Let's see if there's anything at the bottom there that I'm missing. No, that's all section 3. Go through part 1 and 2 of section 3. All your different possible responses. I suppose the important thing to note there as well is it's all the possible answers. So they give you way more answers than you need, okay? So you just look at the marking scheme and you'll be able to tell how many states you need, because we've done a lot of that in class. And the rest are just extra notes. And those little extra notes there, you can pop into your mind maps and pop into your own notes to add to the notes that you have. Because these are very specific, obviously, very related to the exam papers, so they're going to be very relevant. Okay, that's it. I think that's enough for today. Thanks for your attention. Hope all are well, and I hope that was helpful. Bye-bye. Hi and welcome. This is a video to help my JCSPE students with their priority learning units. So step one is to come into my website, which you know at this stage, Mr. MacGarrigan, mac.weebly.com. You can Google that too and it'll come up. And then you come down here and you'll see if your JCSP videos 1 and 2 with the answers to the below photographs as such explained. Next thing to note is this differentiated CSP handout. Okay, so I'm going to put up a third video here and it'll be called Priority Learning Units, so PLUs. And they go through the PLUs in this handout as well, which I've created for you since the start of the year. Okay, I'm going to go on then to another piece of software just to show you what I'm talking about. So the differentiated CSP handout, okay, which I showed you from my website. This is here when you open it up. And what we need to understand, what are the priority learning units? Well, we're going to go through them, but just to note at the start here, I've said you can present your work with audio, with posters, with visual displays. So I'm very open to different ways of you producing your evidence that you're learning and that you're making an effort. Yeah, which is number one. So I have lots of graphic organized at the handout in class, and we're also giving out handouts to level 2. But on top of that, we'll just go through a few bits here. So for CSP, JCSP, so the priority learning units then for my JCSP students are to understand, first of all, the difference between a right and responsibility. Okay? Responsibility, for example, could be to pick up litter. A right could be you have a right to education. Yeah. So there's a few elements here, activities that you can write or type out, or again, audio, whatever way you prefer. You create a poster highlighting human rights. Have at least one person on the poster with a speech bubble saying something positive about human rights. So that's one of the first things I get you to do, is to do a poster highlighting something like homelessness or any issue that you think is a big issue in Ireland. Yeah. Know the difference between a need and a want. Again, need is food. Want might be, for example, the latest fashion item. Yeah. Do a college photo collage of people that inspire you and give one comment from each. So it could be your parents, a few students, and you could record them. And you could say why you think they inspire you. In other words, why do they make you want to do things in a better way or to achieve things. Research people online who have changed the world in a positive way. So to do a little write-up, or again, it could be audio, again, open to different ideas, but to look up and research a few people that you think have changed the world in a positive way. Yeah, and to write about them and to do a picture of them, maybe get a photo of them. Yeah, moving on. So human rights instruments. This is more of the learning units that JCSP need to learn. So research and actions associated with that. So research actions that others have done to protect other people or the environment. Make a storyboard or infographic showing what action you'd like to take to protect people and the environment. So first of all, read up anything online. Use google.scholar.com for educational resources. Wikipedia is another resource. And just read about people who have done good things for the environment. You also get loads of information on greenparty.ie for Irish examples. And then you make a story with maybe some speech bubbles and reflect on what you've done in class for the strand and create an audio presentation of what you've learned then at the end. And also then it's a way of reflecting. So you can do an audio just reflecting what I learned about this first strand 1. What did I learn about rights responsibilities? What did I learn about human rights instruments? Yeah, and just to do up a reflection on that, in whatever format you find easiest. Okay, moving on to strand 2 then, we've got global citizenship. So within this, what I want you to do is to look up an ecosystem. What is that? So again, use googlescholar.com and then display pictures of different types of ecosystems around the world. You might see the coral reef in Australia is a big ecosystem where fish and coral have to work in unison to help marine life, but also to create oxygen in the oceans as well. Okay, but you'll see different things on ecologies and different nature reserves around Ireland where everything works together and everything's connected to everything else. So you can draw a poster on highlighting how your family leaves an ecological footprint. That means what damage basically do we do as individuals or families to the environment. Yeah. For example, using fossil fuels. For example, an example of fossil fuels might be using too much diesel or too much petrol, and we could be cycling. Throwing away rubbish when we could be using recyclable Tupperware. There's a few examples for you. So part C I'm looking at here now. What can we as humans do to protect the world's environment so that it stays as a nice place to live? As a nice place to live for future generations. Okay, so what can we do to protect the world's environment? We can get involved with different organizations that are actively trying to go more green and trying to protect the environment. Eco warriors or environmental groups or Green Party groups. So we can do things at home then as well, recycling, using, reusing things, reducing what we use, reducing food waste, having a compost heap outside our gardens, taking rainwater from the roof and using that to water our plants. Things like that all help. So do actions this week of recycling your rubbish and show proof of you of cycling a walk. So get a picture of you maybe recycling rubbish into the correct bins and make maybe a form of presentation with that. You can also cycle or walk depending on your parents' permission, and just to say you did that would be enough. It'd be difficult to get a photograph while you're cycling, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. So, okay, so get someone to get a video of you and speak in the video, explain what you did and why you did it to help the environment, yeah, to help the world be more sustainable. Sustainable means that it'll last forever. That's not just going to last for the next 10 years or 100 years. We need to protect it for future generations. Okay, so reflections then at the end of every strand. Okay, so that's strand 2. And strand 2 is called global citizenship. And what I want you to do at the end of every strand is to do an audio or type it up and just say, what is it you learned about global citizenship and the environment and sustainability? Okay. Again, if you have any questions, you can email john.mcgarry@stjosephsrush.com. If there's any confusion, always let me know. Okay, so added to global citizenship, we can also do a storyboard on local and global development. So what we could do is we could do a story about a family that's been suffering from poverty at home and maybe abroad, maybe in Africa, and highlight the differences and similarities between poor people in Africa and poor people in Ireland. You could do a video of your local area. Is a separate topic. So you video your streets in your local area, maybe using your phone, again with the permission of your parents. Highlight new places that have been developed and ask people why new places have been developed. I know there's a Tesco developed in Rush. So show the new developments, what new buildings, what new things have been set up in Rush, and then have a think about maybe why they were set up. And ask people why they were set up, and then record their answers on audio again, with their permission. Yeah, with the permission of your parents. Okay, so affecting global change. In addition, what you can do is create a profile of someone powerful in the world, someone like Donald Trump, the President of America, or some, like the leader of the United Nations or the EU or Ireland, Leo Varadkar at the moment. So draw a poster highlighting the problems with climate change. So obviously a huge part of global citizenship ties into sustainability. And we know that a problem down the line is climate change. if the planet heats up by more than 1.5 degrees, people will suffer the consequences, the top scientists are saying. So what can we do to help climate change? Well, again, it's reduce, reuse, recycle, and use less fossil fuels and create more renewable energy, such as wind turbines off the coast of Ireland. And biofuels. Okay, and then what you do is after you've tried a few of those, you don't have to do them all. And again, the time frames, there's no pressure on time frames. You just tip away at whatever you can get done within class time. Yeah, so whatever you can get done within class time is great. You can get a little bit done outside of class time using your audio recorders. That'll be great, and that'll add to it. And also watching the news, positive stories in the news. RT News, use the RT News app. And for homework, what you'll be doing is doing your little bit of audio clips and doing your little bit of news, positive news stories on RT. Okay, now, moving on, the last strand then, and again, CSP is done over 2 years, used to be over 3 years, so there's still 3 strands, and again, if you're struggling to get everything done, aim for a realistic target for yourself, so maybe half of the work there, if you can't get the full amount done. If you can get the full amount done, great. If you can't, try and get half it done. And again, you do it during class time. And you can do a little bit outside of class. And never do too much. You don't be doing more than maybe an hour a week on CSP class time, and no more than, say, 10 minutes every second night for homework, okay, and revision. So, explore democracy. Some ideas here of what you could do in the JCSP club. So, explain how democracy works in your school. So, do people get elected into power by vote, or how do year heads get jobs, how do principals get jobs, etc. Do a graphic, so that can be, infographic just means a picture or some diagram showing how Ireland is ruled. So who's at the top of the chain? Leo Varadkar, we know, is Taoiseach. Has he got anyone that he needs to consult with? Who are his subordinates, in other words, who are in government with him, and who's got the most power, the second most power, and then who's got power in a sequence, so one after the other. So you just do a basic diagram on who's in power in Ireland. And again, use googlescholar.com for that, or Wikipedia. So, show a diagram showing how North Korea is ruled. So then have a look into Google to see how North Korea is ruled. You'll find out it's a dictator that rules it, that they don't have democracy, that they can't vote in their leader, that he's a leader because his dad was a leader. Maybe his dad took leadership by power, by force. Mention 5 things you know about the European Union. Okay, so just tap in again to Google Scholar, 5 things about the European Union. And reflect and discuss what you think is good or bad about democracy. Have that discussion with your SNA. Always get your supporting teacher there to help you with any problems you have with this. Get them to help as well. Include them. Ask them for advice. If you find that your supporting teacher doesn't understand or doesn't know what's expected from me as teacher, make sure, obviously, one of you let me know that so we can help. Okay, so mention 5 things you know about the United Nations. So that's a big organization to help try and keep peace in the world. So write 5 things you know about it. And then list 5 things that you've learned and found interesting about Northern Ireland and the Troubles. Okay, so what's Northern Ireland? Who rules it? What troubles have there been in the past? Little things like that will be fine. Okay, and then we get on to a new section within strand 3. Again, there's 3 strands, there's different parts within each strand. And law is a big strand. You'll see I did videos up on law to make it easier for you, up on my website, and up on Schoology. And we also have our Google Drives as well, haven't we? So, number 1, reflect on why any laws are important and the ones you as a student have to follow. And then present this using Google Slides, or again, pictures or audio. But what you're trying to get at here is laws that are important for Ireland to function well. So, for example, it's a law that you can't rob things. Why is that a law? What would happen if there wasn't a law for that? It's just reflect and think about what the world would be like without laws. And number 2, know the difference between consumers, local laws, criminal law, civil law, EU and international law. So even if you did a line or two about each one, consumer law is to protect us when we're buying things. Local laws are to protect things like, say, for example, beaches. There's bylaws there on the beaches. You can't do scooters, noisy scooters, say, after a certain time at night time for obvious reasons, noisy for neighbours. Criminal law then is like the theft, murder. Civil laws like divorce and marriage and buying a house. EU and international law, we get laws from the European Union and we get laws from the international world that we have to abide by. Okay, so write up 2 points about each, find a picture about each which symbolises the organisation that looks after any aspect of law. The role of media in democracy then is the final thing that we look at. So part A, you could write down, or again using audio, the pros and cons of freedom of the media, give examples, give 3 of each. So why is it good to have freedom of media? How can it get, say, some leaders in trouble when you've got freedom of press as well? Should it be monitored more? Should it be look at fake media on different social media apps? How could we regulate or monitor more to make sure we're getting the truth? I suppose the important thing, isn't it, when it comes to the media? The media means television, newspapers, social media. How do we get our news? So understand the difference between fake news and good news and give 3 examples of each. Okay, we just spoke about that. And listen and learn about the role of media in a social justice movement, a political election or referendum, a criminal investigation or an environmental movement. Okay, well, don't complicate that too much yourself. Just try and keep it simple there. And listen and learn about the role of media, say, in a political election. How did Donald Trump get elected? How did Leo Varadkar get elected? For example, Leo has a Twitter account. For example, Donald Trump, the current president of America, has a Twitter account. He uses social media. Barack Obama, they say that one of the main reasons he got into power was the use of social media. He had to get his message out there. So there's good and bad with social media, isn't there? Okay, but the truth is the important thing from that. We're getting experts and the truth from our media. That's what's important. So it's important to reflect again about each of these different sections and write down what you think, what are your opinions, and what have you learned. Okay, that wraps up priority learning units and actions for my JCSP students in CSPE. Thanks for listening. Keep safe. Bye-bye.